serve as Vice President of Academic and Student Affairs here at Washington College. Thanks for coming to this morning's session, HLC Quality Assurance for 2018. On the tables in front of you, there's a sheet of paper that says, please be aware that this session is being live streamed on YouTube, and it's being recorded, and it will be distributed to the college later. So any questions you ask, or if you decide to come up to the front and point at the board with me, you'll be on camera. But I appreciate you coming. I'm going to be staying near the board just because we're being live streamed. I'd rather not talk from off camera. So I'll be staying up at the front during the session. I want to say thank you to Kristen Bivens and Cameron Swanson, the coordinators of Faculty Development Week, that have organized the event and set up the live streaming for us. And for those of you who aren't here and are watching just the recording, we're just in a standard classroom at Harold Washington College. The session is intended to be directed towards the folks in the room. If you have questions, you can contact me at the college, otherwise at a later date. So today's session is a 2018 Quality Assurance for the Higher Learning Commission. As we get started, before we even look at the agenda, I want to talk about how we got to this point today. This isn't the first day that we're doing this. We didn't start out of a vacuum. Over the summer, what we did on our summer vacation, the steering committee met over the summer. This is the steering committee, members of faculty and administration, who got together to figure out how we were going to structure the process of completing our quality assurance program for the Higher Learning Commission. So anything you see here today was done as part of a group. I had it was a joy to facilitate those sessions, but we were a group working together through the summer, and I'm really happy that two of our members, Carrie Nepstad and Erica McCormack from the steering committee, are here today. The two of you both feel free to jump in at any time if you want to add to something I'm saying. So let's jump ahead. There's a lot to talk about by 9:45. So if I'm going fast, I tend to do that anyway. If I'm going fast, you want me to slow down, let me know. I'm going to slow down more when we get to talking through the criteria. And there's a lot of material that I'll be sending out to you as well after the session. Quick overview of what accreditation actually is, the criteria for accreditation, how you might be participating in the process, the criterion chairpersons and committees, what the submission portal looks like, and how we might move ahead. If you can't see the screen because of the computer that we're using to live stream, please come on up to the front. So what is accreditation? When I started at the college in 1996, I was put onto an accreditation committee towards our 1998 reaccreditation. I really had no idea what it was. I knew the word and the concept, but what the process was and why it's important. This comes from the Council of Higher Education Accreditation. It's a really great definition. It's a collegial process of self-review and peer review for the improvement of academic quality and public accountability of institutions and programs. It's a wonderfully simple way to say what accreditation is. It talks about how it takes place every 3 to 10 years, and then the primary pieces of what accreditation involves. The self-study, which is what we're going to be talking a lot about today, the peer review, and then the decision by the accrediting organization. So the self-study is what the college is going to be working on for the next 2 years. The peer review is when we are reviewed by the Higher Learning Commission, and then a decision by the Higher Learning Commission as to whether or not we're going to be affirmed for accreditation. It's a wonderful definition. The three major players in this process outside of the college: the Department of Education, and these are right from their websites, what their mission is. And you'll see in the missions, it's very much about quality assurance, though I would say that the Department of Education is sometimes about quality control. It depends who you're talking to. I was at the CHIA conference in Washington, D.C. this past year, and there were a lot of conversations between the Department of Education and CHIA, the Council for Higher Education Accreditation, where the Department of Education wanted more accountability, and CHIA was explaining that we support quality assurance. We don't hold people accountable. We just help them to develop. It was a very interesting high-level discussion, but the Department of Ed delivers our financial aid and is responsible for making sure the integrity of what we're doing under the with financial aid money is sound. The Council for Higher Education oversees accrediting bodies. They're located in Washington, D.C. They watch over the 7 accrediting bodies in the country. Ours is the Higher Learning Commission, and that's the one that we answer to. They're an independent corporation. They accredit degree-granting post-secondary educational institutions in the North Central region. That's us. There are 17 states that are sort of across the Midwest and eking over a little bit east and west of there. Serving the common good by assuring and advancing the quality of higher learning. I think that's a really noble mission. That's simply what it says on their website. So this process that we're going to embed ourselves in over the next 2 years is about demonstrating the quality of our programs and that we're meeting the expectations of the accrediting body who eventually is answering up to the Department of Education. In my limited experience with this at a high level, it's unusual that a school would actually lose their accreditation. It's likely that you get support and you get monitoring reports that you have to complete to show that there's places you need to work, things you need to work on, places that you need to improve. But just to get a sense of the scope, you have this very large umbrella through the Department of Education, and just the fact that we're meeting today fits into this process of eventually demonstrating quality to the accrediting bodies that will eventually be approved through the Department of Ed. The criteria for accreditation from the Higher Learning Commission website. What are we doing? These are the standards of quality by which the Commission determines whether we should be reaccredited or reaffirmed, or whether we merit accreditation or get reaffirmed. The integrity of our credit hours, the 3 credit hours that you go into a classroom and teach, usually 3 credit hours. The integrity of that hour has to be demonstrated through this process in all regards. And when you get down to it, everything we do in here all day, every person, every staff person, every faculty member, everybody participating in this process, everybody who works in the college contributes to the integrity of that credit hour. So this is a very, very thorough process that we're expected to engage to demonstrate that the quality of what we do. This is as simple as it gets, the actual criteria, when we start getting down to content and what they're going to be looking for. And I'm going to go through these individually, but the mission, the integrity of our institution, a couple of huge parts on teaching and learning, and then planning and institutional effectiveness. Jump ahead. So criterion 1, the mission. These are from the HLC documents, and I can expand on these. I brought the full guideline. But for each one of these criterion, the institution's mission in this case is clear and articulated publicly. It guides the institution's operations. Within each one are about 4 to 6 core components, and we're going to be writing to these core components to demonstrate that we do them. But the Commission's documents go further. For example, in 1A, just under this one core component, there are 3 subcomponents. They want us to show that the mission, for example, is developed through a process suited to the nature and culture of the institution and is adopted by a governing board. So that's just within 1A. Also within 1A, the institution's academic programs, student support services, and enrollment profile are consistent with its stated mission. The institution's planning and budgeting priorities align with the support and support the mission. All that's just within 1A. And then what we're going to do, you're going to see in a little bit, is we have to provide evidence that we do this, or if we're not doing it well enough to our liking, what we're planning to do to change, to move forward. And within each of these, there's a complete set of subcomponents to go through. I'm not going to go through all of them individually now. That's going to be the work of the committees, and we're going to have another opportunity later at the beginning of the year to talk through these as a group. So that's just criterion 1. Criterion 2, integrity, ethical, and responsible conduct. The institution acts with integrity. Its conduct is ethical and responsible. And now you see we're getting into more core components. So as we approach this process, a lot of folks think that it's really important that we say yes to everything. And we say, we're fantastic, we're doing a great job all the time at all these things. That's not the case. I think this is the most amazing institution, and I'm sure you feel as well. There are places where we need to develop. We've all seen challenges in communication across our multi-tiered institution, right, in the last year. So there might be places where we need to talk about that and say it's been a challenge, but it's something that we can work on and we know how to work on it. But keep in mind, this report goes back over the last 10 years. It's not just this year. So we might say there's been a hiccup in the last year, but over the last 10 years, excuse me, we've been doing really well in this regard. So as you read through these and you see these, there might be something that catches your attention and says, we don't do that. I don't like the way that happened this year. Well, it's important that we address that, but we don't make the whole report about something that's a single small challenge. We might remark about it, and talk about it to contextualize it. But we're going to be looking at the college on the whole over time and saying, here are our strengths and here are our challenges. And if we have challenges, here's how we want to address them. And if there's strengths, here's how we want to play to them and how we leverage them towards student success. Criterion 3, teaching and learning, quality resources and support. We provide high quality education wherever and however its offerings are delivered. This is just a great one. If you had to talk about what's really the heart of this is about our classrooms, how we do what we do in the class, and how we deliver our courses. Recognizing that there's so much outside the classroom that goes into that classroom happening, this is where we get into what you're doing as a teacher and how you demonstrate it and how we support you. The institution's degree programs are appropriate to higher education. The institution demonstrates that the exercise of intellectual inquiry and the acquisition, application, and integration of broad learning and skills are integral to its educational programs. I mean, from an academic perspective, that's really neat. I know on the outside, it might sound kind of dry, but this is what you do as teachers and what we do to support you as teachers. And our ability to demonstrate that in a wide variety of ways is very important to us completing the quality assurance report. We pull out one on this one of the subcomponents under number 3, just because I think it's such an important one. So under 3B, the one that I just read through, the general education program is appropriate to the mission, the educational offerings, and degree levels of the institution. Every degree program offered by the institution engages students in collecting, analyzing, and communicating information, and mastering modes of inquiry or creative work, and in developing skills adaptable to changing environments. I mean, honestly, that's engaging in itself to think that, yeah, we do that. And how do we do that? And how can we demonstrate that we do that? How we demonstrate it and how we prove that here in the assurance report is what we're going to get to when we talk about how you can serve this process and how we're going to collect information. And please stop me if you have questions. Criterion 4, teaching and learning, evaluation and improvement. What big chunk of what we do here on campus fits into this criterion? If we had to demonstrate that we do this, we demonstrate responsibility for the quality of educational programs, learning environments, and support services, and evaluate their effectiveness for student learning through processes designed to promote continuous improvement. In a word, what do we do here really well? And I have a hint if you don't know. Really well, that will easily sort of fit in here and demonstrate that we do this at least in part. What's the one word? Assessment. Thank you. From the front row. So assessment. We have a nationally recognized assessment program. Remember I mentioned SHIA before, the Council for Higher Education Accreditation. In 2013, we got their award as a community college for our assessment practices. And that fits in really well here. It also fits into number 3 too. There's a lot of crossover because assessment fits here. It also fits, if you go back, into our teaching quality. Assessment's about both those things. So as we develop the report, we might have all of our assessment stuff in one place and we'll refer to it for 2 different criteria. Criterion 4. Criterion 5. Resources, planning, and institutional effectiveness. Our resources, our structures, and processes are sufficient to fulfill the mission. We plan, we have budgets, we gather the resources that we need to help you deliver the classes, to provide students with support outside of class. Systematic and integrated planning, systematically improve performance. Governance and administrative structures promote effective leadership and support collaborative processes that enable the institution to fulfill its mission. So as a multi-tiered system, this is where we've seen lots of challenges in the last year. That's ebbed and flowed historically, but this might be a place, 5B, where we want to talk about how we've been trying to communicate better and better through the last year through various forms of shared governance. It's going to vary. It's something that's going to be designed by the college, not by administration or the steering committee. So that's the overview, the high look at the 5 criterion. Within each of these are the sub-criterion, and then we have to start gathering information to demonstrate that we do these things. So what can you do? There's 3 major ways you can do this, and we'll probably accept anything in between. Serve as a criterion chairperson, where you're actually going to chair the committee that addresses these. The committees are going to be providing the evidence and the narratives that are going to get fed to the steering committee and into the actual report. This is not done by a small group of people. This is done by at least 5 committees. There's a criterion chairperson that there will be an application for, I'll show you in a bit, who will run that criterions committee. You can also just serve on a committee. It can be your committee work. It could be something that you add onto your schedule to help address the evidence and the narrative. There are also going to be opportunities to provide feedback and provide evidence. So let's say you're not on a committee, you're swamped with something else. Let's say you're serving on faculty council, or you're on the assessment committee and you just really can't do anything, but the committee comes to you and says, do you have evidence about this item? We're not sure how we demonstrate that, but I know you're on the assessment committee. What part of the assessment committee would demonstrate that we're fitting, that we're meeting that criterion or that core component? So there's going to be lots of opportunities just to provide feedback. If you have colleagues coming to your office to talk to you about it, that's where you might be serving the process. So the steering committee this summer set up the year 1 calendar. This is very small on the screen. This is going to be going out to all of you. But here we are today, August 18th. It's our first sort of kickoff session. There will be more information going out. Again, this session is being live streamed and recorded, so everybody in the college can get hold of it. We are going to be having a mandatory session for the college after the semester starts, where we're going to get together and kind of work through the criterion teams with the criterion chairs leading the day. But you can see a fairly aggressive first year schedule. If I can jump to the end, by the end of the spring 17 semester, our first draft is uploaded for us to review. We've put the resources towards it and the time towards it. On this calendar, we'll be looking at a really solid first draft. So we spend next summer going through it in depth, figuring out what we need to continue, or where we can really start fine tuning if we have any gaps. And we spend our second year, spring 17, fall 17, spring 18, really turning this into a wonderfully nimble and efficient document. And I'll talk about that more in a little bit. But on, I think it's August 1st, 2018, our report is locked down. We used to create a gigantic paper report that the committee would come and read when they were here. Now it's all in a cloud. And it's got a 35,000 word maximum outside of the evidence files. So the narrative is very short, the data is very big, or the evidence is very big, and they close it. After that date, they start going in to review it, and then they decide what they want to look at when they get here. So that's a little bit of a change from the process. So this will be, again, it's small on the screen, I won't walk through it, but this established calendar is what we're going to really try to stick to as we go. We have very strongly recommended meetings for the criterion committees in terms of how often they should be meeting. Running the criterion committees is going to be a criterion chair coordinator who's going to be a member of the steering committee who's going to oversee that process to make sure they're moving forward, and they'll meet regularly as well. The call for applications, so the criterion chairpersons, you're going to be getting this via email. But the committee came up with a job description for the chairs. This is a really important position for the college, because these criterion chairs are going to be defining the nature of the narratives and the evidence that are collected. There's going to be a lot of support coming out of my office, out of the research office, and from the steering committee and the criterion chair coordinator. But the heart of the work is coming out of the committees, which is often primarily faculty. So we don't have to go through this piece by piece. I'll pull out another slide a bit. But the position is compensated. This semester, the positions start in week 4. I believe we have 4 hours a week commitment for stipend. If the person's not a faculty member, then we have other ways of delivering compensation for the work. In the spring 17 semester, it's 3 release hours for each of the criterion chairs. 3 release hours. Does anybody know how many hours of work for a semester is 3 release hours? 6 a week, so 96 hours of work in the semester, and there's a lot to do, and it may not be enough. Talk about it later, but for each release hour that you get, it's 2 hours of work per week over 16 weeks in the spring semester. During the spring semester, as we're wrapping up the narratives, we're going to reassess how it's going and decide on what kind of commitment we need to make in the second year to support. But we're going to put the support behind it so that the the criterion committee chairs have the time as the most valuable resource to get work done. I think this is the most important page for this process in terms of the human component. Again, the criterion chairpersons are vital to the success of this. They have to be able to do these things, and not just, well, kind of, sort of. And I'm not trying to sound harsh, but demonstrated experience, demonstrated clear commitment to the college mission, and a demonstrated practical ability on campus already to do these things. You work as part of a team, you meet deadlines, you commit time to the college outside the classroom, you motivate colleagues, develop a working trust with them, communicate effectively orally and in writing, because you are doing writing that's actually going to get uploaded, though it'll be proved and it'll be brought to a common voice later. The work of the criterion committee chairs is actually getting uploaded. They're going to be uploading it themselves. I'll show you that later. Strong interpersonal skills. It's just the most valuable tool in working in an organization like ours, right? And working with committees. If the criterion chairperson ends up by themselves doing the work, then the process is failing. This is a collaborative process because nobody knows more about the college than the staff and faculty who are running the college. And so it has to be this kind of pulling off of everybody into a common place that's going to end up in demonstrating what we do. So if you're interested in being a criterion committee chairperson and you want to talk through the expectations here to make sure that you understand them, feel free to contact myself or anybody on the steering committee. And that if you'll see the slide presentation later, their names are at the beginning of it. But this is just a huge part. The responsibilities are very concrete. These things have to be met. And I don't see why if someone took on the responsibility, they wouldn't want to do these things. This is just practical. There's no surprises. But the deadlines are going to be met. The coordinator of the criterion committees is going to be working closely to make sure people are on. You're not going to disappear and then kind of come back to submit stuff. There will be regular meetings. And we have a process in place to support how you collect evidence. So you're really concentrating on content and you're not having to invent a process to work through. We have a space that we're setting up to be kind of a strategy room for the criterion committee chairs and some of the committee members and the committee coordinator to meet regularly. It's a small room that'll be committed to the process for the next 2 years. So the meetings can be held there. There are going to be all of our resources there, strategy sessions, sharing of ideas. That's going to be part of what's happening. But then how do you do this? What's the evidence? How do I get the evidence? What do I have to do and write? We went back to our 2008 study, and I'm sure y'all remember Cecilia Lopez, who was our vice president then. She created an amazing handbook that we have since modified and pilfered a little bit, and we'll be giving her public credit for. But she had worksheets. How do you take an entire college and get evidence and strategies and narratives together? We went from 4 worksheets down to 2 with the steering committee. Identifying the evidence that you need. The chairpersons in the committee will be filling these out, and we're going to have an electronic version, so you're filling these out online. Then we're going in to support you as necessary. This gets you in the ballpark of the evidence. Each criterion and each of its core components will have a separate page. Here's the core component: operating with integrity, et cetera, et cetera. We're going to provide some HW examples to get you started. You and the committee, if you're a criterion chairperson, will say, does HWC do this? Yes, no, or not sure. Does the evidence exist already? Yes, no, not sure. What's the evidence you're thinking of? And what's the initial narrative? This is not the final writing. That's a different process. This happens early on in the process, in the first meetings with the criterion committees, when the chair is working with the teams. Once they get this together, and they'll be sharing these with the coordinator to talk through if there are challenges. We want evidence. How do we collect it? So here we go again, core component. What is the evidence that was identified? Is it something that could be obtained by the committee? Are they requesting assistance to obtain it? Do they need to have consultation on that assistance to talk through, is this something that would work? Where is it available? Do we have to create it? What's the lift look like to get it together? Sorry that some of the grid lines are missing on the document, but these worksheets will be filled out for every core component so that it helps you to gather information and you focus on content. There's a process in place. Then there's the writing, and this is it's in draft form only because it hasn't gone back to the committee. Carrie put this final draft together for us. So that when you write, there's a narrative. You're going to be writing and talking through the examples that are provided of evidence, taking the narratives that you wrote, bringing them together into one common document that's going to get uploaded and that the committee is going to be reviewing. So kind of like writing towards a grant, there's some very specific information that we're going to be asking with a very specific format. So we have one common way of looking at the document. We'll bring it into Common Voice later with a writer, but you'll be submitting the narrative based on the 2 worksheets. This is not meant to sort of oppress the process. It's meant to support sort of an open discussion of how we do what we do and how we can demonstrate it. And this is vital because the project is too large to proceed otherwise. And it was pretty successful in 2008, the way that we did it, so we wanted to continue. The last part of the application process is how do you do that? I'll be sending out details on the application. A letter of interest to the steering committee. The steering committee will be reviewing the applicants and making recommendations to the college president. Many things to address in the 1 to 2 page letter: why you're interested, how you've demonstrated the qualifications that I've talked to you about above, and how you would rank your criterion preference. A lot of people want teaching and learning, but we can't have 5 criterion chairs for teaching and learning. So of the 5, what's your first, second, third, fourth, and fifth favorite? And then it'll get delivered to me. I'll push it out to the committee. Committee will decide, we'll vote, and we'll send recommendations forward. On that calendar, the committee is in place by September 26th. So we have to have a decision by the middle of September, which is coming up. So the deadline is a week from tomorrow. If there's any concerns with that, let me know. But this is a big deal. I expect people who are interested to want to jump in right away and get the letter done. One of the things the committee is going to do, one of the things the criterion chairpersons are going to do is upload the initial document into the portal. So if you remember from 2008, we had an entire room with file cabinets and computers for the visiting committee to come to review us. And they came in, they read through stuff, they looked for things, they got online. That doesn't happen anymore. The whole thing, 35,000 words plus evidence, is uploaded into a cloud. They read the cloud after our lockdown date, they read the assurance report, they decide what they want to see when they get here. They're only here 2 days now, not 3 or 4 days. And they don't tell us anything when they leave. They leave, we find out later if we got approved or not. It used to be we'd have this big event. Hey, you got your accreditation, and we'll give you details later. It doesn't happen. So this is just to demonstrate what it actually looks like. There's a portal. There are folders and evidence files that we'll be uploading into. This is a sample. Oops, let's go back one. They get very detailed as we go, and we'll have naming protocols within our folder structure. We're not all going to invent it. We'll make sure that there's a folder architecture that we're all going to be working with. And then there's the narratives. Writing to each of the core components, we'll be uploading the narratives. In the narratives will be links into the evidence folders. It's not fancy technology, but it's very, very thorough. It's what you would expect to see for this kind of thing. But we're all the criterion chairpersons are going to be uploading into it. So I wanted to leave us at least 10 or 15 minutes to talk through it. We can talk through sample pieces of evidence. What you can do today, and you can do this regardless of whether or not you're signing up to be a committee chair or not, criterion sign-up sheets. By criterion, you can sign up, I would like to be on that committee. You can put your name on here and apply to be a committee chair as well. These are going to be available on the way out today. But I want to reinforce that the college is fantastic. You guys know that. I think we fulfill our mission exceptionally well. We have amazing teachers, amazing students, and the social purpose of our mission is fantastic. This is a place where we make real change for a very challenged society in providing access to higher education. We're just going to demonstrate what we already do for the most part. We're going to address challenges, and there are challenges here. There are lots of places. If we have some anecdotal challenges, we can address those. The report's going to be about the last decade of this school, which is really amazing. I had the fortune of being on the 1998 visit. The 2008 visit, I was a criterion chair. And again, it's just amazing to be in this position with the steering committee now and trying to draw in people to do this this time through. What I always found was that we're doing this all the time. This is no mystery. We just have to document it. It'd be nice to build in the documentation piece so it's a regular part of our culture. I think with the movement towards data collection in the district, it's going to make it easier in the next few years to be doing this. Our visit's coming in 2018, so we might have to get ahead of the curve in a couple areas. For example, we collect a lot of data over the last 3 or 4 years that we didn't collect 8 years ago. And so there's going to be that marriage we have to make as a team, and how do we make connections from what we knew we were doing but weren't collecting data on, to we're still doing it, and now we actually have data to show it. Data, the evidence could be anything from hard data out of open book on student success rates in a given class, to newsletters that the faculty council puts out, or to a social committee that gets together to hold events for students. Everything and anything that goes on in this college should be finding its way into this report. That's the half-hour version of what I did on my summer vacation with the steering committee. I hope I didn't go too fast, but I wanted to make sure to get that primary information out. Again, this is recorded and live streamed, so we're going to push this out to the college. There's going to be a mandatory meeting, for lack of a better way to put it, in late September. Want to get us together around the criterion to talk through them. It's very standard practice. And then we're going to move ahead very purposefully and complete this report. So questions, Jenny?
How big is there an ideal sort of size of each committee? I served on one of the 2008 committees, and I remember them being big, like at the beginning, and then smaller because it was hard to find time and whatnot. So I'm wondering also about the composition of the committees. Are we trying for clearly multidisciplinary, but also staff, administration, student, like all stakeholders on each committee?
Ideally, yes. So I don't know if it's, the recording picked that up because the microphone's in the computer. So Jen's question was, what's the composition of the committee look like in terms of the roles people play on campus, and how big are the committees, and can they get too big or too small? So like you, in 1996 when I started, we had, I was on the student life committee with then English professor Ed Homewood, who was also the PTK advisor. I don't know if anybody else remembers him. He was amazing. There were 12 of us on the committee to start. There were 2 of us on at the end. It was Ed and myself sitting in his office completing the report. I think it's very much up to the criterion chair. Ed was happy to do the work. People weren't used to doing it the way that we were doing it under then President Nancy Desambre, who was a accreditation specialist. So ideally, if we start with about 10 on each committee, functionally, not because people don't want to do it, but they just get overwhelmed with other things on campus, your teachers 99% of the time. We'd like to see it stay with at least 5 people on each committee in the end. Starting with 10, I think, is a good way to go. In terms of the composition, absolutely yes. We should ideally have faculty, staff, admin as possible. There's only 30 administrators in the building, and it's a lot to spread them out over. We should have representation, and then as best we can, a student on the committees too. Adriana?
Yeah, my question is regarding the mission. Okay, at this point, I mean, I was part of the criteria. I was one of the, like you were, in the previous accreditation, and I remember that we sat together to work on the mission of the college, and that was supposed to be, the mission of the college all this time.
Yeah.
But today, when we go to our Washington College page, the mission is the same as at Wright College, at Malcolm X, at everyone. So how are we going to address that? Because the main problem I see is that we don't know, or at least I wouldn't know how to depart from that, because I mean, the accreditation process that we were before, that we're standing for this 10 years, was based on that mission.
Absolutely. So, that same question came up on the first day with the steering committee. We all recognize that. The first criterion, right, is about mission, and all kinds of ways that we relate to the mission. I don't think that the missions are so disparate from what we do as an institution, but it doesn't feel like it's our mission individually the way we used to decide it. So what we did was we gathered historical data about the mission. What were the old mission statements? When did they change? Under what? Was it for the accreditation process, or was there another reason that we changed it? And then when we hit 2011, we have a district mission that got applied to all of us, and it's a good mission, but it wasn't one that was designed on the ground at the college like the routine was before that. So one of the members of the steering committee, Ian Sharping, is a former adjunct here, and he currently works at district office in the area of accreditation. He's pulling the functional history of how the mission was developed there and bringing it out to the discussion. I expect that the criterion committee that's dealing with criterion 1 on the mission is going to jump into that and dissect it. But it's not for me to explain here, it's for that committee to get in, dig around, and see what do we want to do moving forward, and how do we address the disparity between any changes that we're not connected to anymore, or we don't feel we're connected to.
And the second question I have is I mean, probably you put it at the beginning, but maybe few of us were not here. Who is the steering committee?
Oh, sure, it was right at the beginning. I'm happy to go back to this. It was one, honestly, and I'm digressing a little bit. Sorry. Oh, no, way back. This was the steering committee. It was really nice. It was only 4 meetings, about 2.5 hours each, a couple offline meetings, but it was just the nicest group to talk with about the college. One faculty member from the committee said, you know what, it's been a challenging year. This past year particularly has been challenging. It's going to be really nice to get back into this process and rediscover the things that we know to be so wonderful about the college. And I think this committee demonstrated a level of collegiality, equity among our ideas and perspectives, and sort of focus on moving ahead towards this. That was just really nice to be a part of. I had a great time at the meetings. I think everybody else did too. I don't know that Carrie and Erica would, or Michael or Yoletta, thank you all for coming from the committee. Is anybody else here from the committee? No.
Carrie's wife.
Carrie just did a lot more work than everybody else. She just did more, yeah. And I have a comma after my name. That's my alter ego. Arms Swafian and this is part of him. But yeah, Jen and then Carrie.
For those of us that aren't sure what our future is here, are we still eligible?
So right now you're a faculty member at Harold Washington College. You're eligible.
So we're eligible.
I'm not looking ahead, and that's a different paradigm. This is about us, the last 10 years. If you're here this year, if you're here now and you're teaching, or you're a staff member, or you're a student, and you want to apply, I encourage you to do it.
So I guess for Carrie and I, something like if we ended up next year not being here, could we still, I mean, would we be able to still, I'm wondering how that would look. I assume we're gonna be here. I'm not thinking we're going anywhere anymore. So, but I'm assuming, so, and I think some of us that might be at risk of leaving might be really important people in this process.
So Jennifer's comment and question was, if our program is moving and we're not here next year or the year after before this happens, does that impact our opportunity to apply to do this in any way or to participate? And I say no. I'll deal with that stuff when we get to it. If we have to explain to the Higher Learning Commission that we had a transition in our leadership team among the criterion chairs or the committee members or the steering committee because a program moved, for whatever reason it moved, we'll make that explanation. As always, you tell the truth, you express your challenges, and you explain how you're going to move forward because we don't have a choice. We're never going to take a challenge and drive ourselves into the ground. We're going to take the challenge and we're going to fix it. That's what the school's done now for 20 years that I've been watching it. And I'm optimistic and stubborn, and I'm not going to let things out of my control affect the quality of what we're doing here today. Carrie, you had a...
That's yes, good on all that. That's all I was going to say.
Carrie says yes, that's why she's on here twice. She said yes a lot.
Yeah, another quick question is, I don't dismiss, I mean, I think that everyone that is invited is great, you know, for my colleagues. But at the same time, I wonder, I mean, how was the steering committee selected, and if that was under consultation with faculty council, for example?
It wasn't. This committee was put together by President Martin and myself to get started, and then we asked folks if they wanted to do it. I forget when we informed faculty council. Carrie, do you remember?
I think Jess was part of that planning process.
Was Jeff? Okay, so the faculty council president, forgive me, my memory. Carrie reminded me that Jessica Bader was part of the planning process and was aware of what we were doing and when and who we were talking to. To be honest, the committee was formed by people who have, and there are a lot of people like this on campus, from a few different departments, a few different areas of administration, demonstrated experience in leadership roles on campus. Variety of amounts of time on campus. It was a nice cross-section of our college, Carrie.
And just to be clear, the people on that list are not the criterion chairs. That's still to come. So.
And this team now is pulling back from the process. We're looking at a vetting and proofreading sort of role, making sure things are still going okay when there are challenges, like maybe the challenge if somebody leaves the college and was a leader, how are we going to address it? But it's the people who apply out of the college and get selected by the committee to be recommended that are going to be driving this and really delivering the content. So, did I answer the question? Caroline?
It sounds like quite an endeavor. What is the role of district in this?
It's a great question. As Caroline asked what the role of district is in this process. So obviously in a multi-tiered institution, there are processes that district manages that we use, right? Like the new student portals, the admissions process, some of our federal compliance things and how the budget is maintained in the state environment, right? They take care of all that for us. So Ian Sharping is our liaison to district, and it's his obligation to go to them as we ask for it, or the committees ask for it, to bring the data back or to bring the information back. He's also helping us with the federal compliance piece, which is very serious, very short, and really important. Part of this process is delivering documents to the Department of Education. At Tuesday's event, I talked about how we have to be demonstrating in our syllabi that for every credit hour of class time, it's clear that there are 2 hours of homework a week. So for a 3-hour class, your syllabus has to show that there are 6 hours of homework. Not here, spend an hour on this and spend an hour on that, but there should be some sense of that's about 6 hours of homework. And I have some resources I'm going to send out to you. I mentioned Phil Vargas helped me start gathering them to show how do you demonstrate that in the syllabus without making it into an oppressive document. That came right out of the federal government. They want to see that because what's happening is the federal government pays out lots of money for financial aid. What's the return on the investment, for lack of a better word? Are students getting the right courses? Are we delivering what we say we're delivering when we're taking the federal government money to pay for the institution? And so that's a huge piece. That accountability is a huge point of contention, not contention. There's a push and pull with the accrediting bodies and the federal government because the federal government wants quality control. The accrediting bodies want quality assurance. And they say we can't control them, we can only suggest to them. And the federal government's saying, but we want to make sure we're getting our money's worth. That's a really interesting point to see what's happening right now, considering the economy and the budget.
In addition to the requirements for homework, and I'm interested to see how you measure what we're doing, demonstrated compliance with the Violence Against Women Act, FERPA, those types of things.
Yeah, aside from what we're required to put into a syllabus by the federal government, is also what we require as an institution. So if we have a practice here of requiring that a FERPA statement or an ADA statement be in your syllabus, and 90% of the syllabi don't have it, why is that? Right? And so there's going to be a kind of, let's see if it's not there, but it needs to be there. What systems do we have in place that can help improve that? Or how are we able to assure that that's happening? We send out a syllabus checklist and we share that with coordinators and chairs and hope that they work with their faculty to get that in there. Why is it working? Why is it not? That'll be something we'll address through the process. Bridget?
Yes, where does program accreditations fit into this, or does it? I mean, wonder what?
Absolutely. Where does program level accreditation? So we have the ACBSP for our business program. We have NACI, I got those acronyms in my head. We have NACI for child development.
Yeah.
Those are going to fit into quality assurance. It's just another level of that we like our assessment committee. It's another level of quality assurance that we answer for what we do here. And so you are going to probably be very taxed to provide the links to the evidence of all the work you did to get the business program accredited independently. The paralegal program is moving towards accreditation. By the time HLC gets here, we should be right on the cusp of hard work on that independent accreditation, right through the ABA,
Yeah.
the Bar Association. So that'll be coming too. We are at the end of the time. I want to honor your time contract. That worked out nice and tight, 45 seconds. In my last 45 seconds, I'm going to explain that I'm going to be putting these out. You don't have to sign them out. You have one more opportunity at least. And you can always join committees along the way. And I really want to encourage, if you are new to all of this, and it all sounds foreign, it's probably the best time to get on one of the committees. You're going to learn so much about the college and looking and delving into demonstrating how we do what we do. You don't have to do tons of lifting if you just want to be on a committee and participate. These are assigned by criterion. You can put your name on more than one, but we're trying to get a general sense of where people's interests are. And then I'll be sending out the call for applications, but be thinking about the criterion committee chairs. I will stick around for a few minutes if there's questions. I want to release everybody to go and be signing these.
I wanted to make a plug for signing up because for me, I learned more than I ever thought I could from doing it, and it was very, very enjoyable. It was a really kind of positive experience for us.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm on your side with that. So thank you. I'm going to turn off our broadcast now. This is being recorded, so you'll be able to see it later if there's something that you missed in the beginning. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.